Hey everyone, welcome to the first video of Unit 2, which is discussing about designing your course. And as you learnt in the introductory video, what this unit is all about is really planning out your course right from the very beginning of choosing the topic that you are going to teach, all the way to developing your structure, developing your PowerPoint slides, and various other sections. So this particular video, we're going to be discussing what topics will you teach, or in other words, how do you know what online course to actually build? And there's no single answer to this, but what we are going to do is explore, what are some different options for you? What are the key sources? Actually, we'll go to the overview first. So first of all, we'll do an introduction to the topic and, why this is an important section of the unit of designing your course. Next, we're going to go through different categories of course inspiration. So looking at your own life and saying from each of these buckets, these are the different areas that I have expertise or I can add value, or there may be demand from audiences to learn about this specific topic. So we'll give you those different categories and then do a deep dive on each and kind of explore some examples from each. And then finally, which is a very big section, we've provided a lot of interesting ideas into this one, is we've gone through by category of different topics and then provided example ideas for courses that maybe you could teach, or just by providing these examples, give you some inspiration to look at your own areas of knowledge or interest and then develop your own kind of subtopic that you can teach others. So let's kick off with an introduction. So, as we discussed earlier, this course, or this subject, I should say, is all about figuring out what you as an individual should teach others about. And I think it's really important to say that, this isn't something that's only meant for a small minority of people. Everyone has some interesting aspect or some unique part of knowledge or some expertise that A, other people might not have, or B, other people are willing to pay for and wish they did have this expertise. I think it's very common for people to doubt themselves and say, well, I'm not an expert, or there's nothing that I have in terms of skills or knowledge that others want. And I think a lot of people are very surprised once they actually go ahead and build a course that there is actually strong demand and they do have many skills and knowledge that other people don't have. So the first question is, what is your expertise? Let's explore this with yourself and figure out where your expertise lies. So most people tend to have at least, if not more, 2 to 3 key specialties. And these are kind of like the broader topics of specialties, not necessarily kind of your underlying topic. So for example, finance could be a general specialty for you, but that might involve, an advanced knowledge of tax and Excel modeling and audit or financial reporting, right? So these are all subcategories, but most people tend to have 2 to 3 general key categories. So for example, if we look at your own personal situation, where do you work? What's your current job? Because straight away, there is a instant specialization. Even if you are a garbage man, or you're an artist, or you're a teacher, or you work in marketing for this example here, all of these are skills that someone else is willing to pay you for your work. And that work requires specialist knowledge that you can potentially teach to others. So for example, marketing, the last one I mentioned, maybe you could teach an introductory course for marketing, whether that's a complete overview or whether it's how to get into the field of marketing, right? An alternative one is, if you're an artist, maybe you can teach others how to paint. Or if you're in finance, you could teach people about tax or audit or M&A, about acquisitions, right? So have a think about, what's being taught to you that you can teach well to others. So it doesn't necessarily need to be in your field of career either, right? It could just be something that that isn't related to your job, right? So for example, did you learn Excel modeling? Was there a specific course that your company sent you away to? Was it about leadership? Was it about public speaking? These are all kind of areas that, maybe it's not part of your job, but you or someone else has paid for a course on this topic. So there is demand for this specific skill or knowledge. So have a think about that as well. Also, could you teach a assistance course to supplement an existing education, right? So have a think about from the lens of education. Did you study high school certificate? Did you do any specific training courses that you were assessed on whilst you were at high school? For example, maths, English, economics. Did you go to university or TAFE or college? Was there a specialist topic that you did there? Was there a subject that you did really well in? If you went to TAFE for something like construction, carpentry, homemaking, cybersecurity, these are all things that as part of your professional education that you know really well. Did you do a postgraduate study? Like, is there something within that knowledge that you think others might find interesting? Or could you do something helping those students who are undertaking the course? So for example, it's almost like an online tutoring for high school or university or just a subject that you know well. And I guess the final point or in this introduction is, have a think about how big the market is, right? Because, I think this is a key consideration. And there's no wrong or right answer, because the bigger the market is, there might be more competition, but, there's more capacity to scale and do really well. But as I said, more competition, so you might have to fight a lot harder and provide really quality service. But if it's a niche market, so smaller total addressable market, maybe there's a lot less competition, but the total addressable market is capped. So maybe it's easier to make sales, to get some growth, but then at the end of the day, you'll be capped at a certain size. So these are just kind of the things to think about initially. But what we will do is we'll go through, the four kind of key areas of course inspiration. So my animation's a little bit slow. There we go. So the four kind of key categories of course inspiration, in other words, the elements of your life that could be sources for you to develop a topic or to teach others. And those kind of four categories are: number one, work, like what you do for a job; number two, study, like what you've learned, what you've studied; number three, what are your passions? So maybe not something that actually currently earns you money, but something that you are really interested in, because that's going to drive you to learn a lot about it because it is interesting. And then finally, research, right? So this is just something that you don't necessarily know anything about, but you're willing to research and tell others about it. So let's kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into each of these. So work, so it could be, how to get promoted. What are some technical skills could be getting into a certain class of employment, whether that's investment banking, which is quite prestigious, or Big Four. From study, it could be, a course providing online tutoring, or just providing assistance with things like high school, university, college, TAFE, extracurricular training, any courses that you've done as connected to your employment, things like that. Next is your passion. So what are the things that you're really passionate about? So are you really into weightlifting, for example? Could you do a course on, because there's so much information required around, how to gain muscle and what are the right exercises to do? Is it about health or cooking, right? So what's kind of your exercise regime? For cooking, what are some amazing recipes? Go do a course on, 100 recipes that take 30 minutes or less, or just a general how to cook class. And yes, there might be lots of those cooking classes out there, but it's, your differentiation is your unique skill set and how you can teach it differently, right? Could be coding, maybe you've learnt that on the side, or filmmaking, something you're passionate about. So there's so many different ideas. This is just a very small sample. Next is research, and this just could be really about any topic you want. It's something that you go ahead and research the information, and then you go teach it in an easy to digest format. And people, even though maybe they can access that information for free as well, what they're paying for is for you to summarize all of that information. So it's the time that you're saving them, right? So someone could go to a library and borrow all these books about, share trading, for example. But if you can go and do that research for them, summarize it in a really succinct way, maybe create some resources, whether it's PowerPoints or quizzes or whatever it may be, to kind of really summarize it in an easy to understand way, how much time are you saving these people, right? And there's people out there who are making $200, $300, $400 an hour. And if you can save them, several hours, that's a lot of money that people will be willing to pay. Okay, so the first kind of lesson is look at what is already bringing in revenue. And that's not just necessarily, going online and looking at the most profitable courses online. That's not what we mean, but it could mean that potentially. But what we mean is, have a look at what are you currently being paid for your time and expertise. So, for example, this is probably your job. Are you the go-to person at work for solving a particular problem? Do your friends or neighbors pay you to help them with something, whether that's studying, whether that's helping them with their tax return, whatever it may be. So, if so, or it might not be even something that you're making money. As I said before, it could just be a course online that's, as you can see, has sold a lot of, people. Maybe it's a YouTube video online which isn't necessarily monetized but has a lot of views. All of a sudden, you know that there's a strong market for these services and that people are willing to pay for them. So we've already validated that market. So just an idea there that when you're thinking about what topics that you can teach, let's go straight to the validation and think, well, this is actually could be quite profitable because it's profitable now in some way, shape, or form. So let's make an online course out of it. Okay, so now we're going to the third section of our specific example ideas for courses by category. And this isn't meant to be a, go and do one of these different courses. What this is meant to be is give you an idea of how to think about it. So for example, think about a general topic that we know or have been paid well for, or it fits into one of these categories. Maybe you do this for work. Maybe you've studied this. Maybe it's your passion. So for example, cooking or health might be your passion. Or, it's just a topic that you think is, profitable and you want to go and research it. So it could fit into any of these categories. But where this category would be is up here. So what we're trying to do with these slides is get you thinking about how to approach it and how to come up with an actual topic for your course. So we'll go through a couple of these. So health and wellness, for example, we'll talk about, why this might be a good idea. And then we'll talk about very specific topics on the right-hand side. So, what you can actually do your course on. So health and wellness, for example. So why is this, potentially a good idea for a general topic for your online course? Well, health and wellness has always and will always be in high demand. It's something that is connected with, getting more mates, right? So you're going to get more dates. It's to do with, staying for longer and for better quality of life. So for example, expected age expectancies have increased over time. Science has shown connection between dementia being reduced because you've had a healthy lifestyle, all kinds of things like that. So, so because of this kind of strong interest, and particularly in COVID, there's also been this strong interest in health and wellness initiatives that can be done from your own home, which might make an online course in the health and wellness area even more attractive. There's also been a number of personal trainers and fitness instructors which offer face-to-face, but there's often been quite a significant lag when it comes to online teaching, simply because a lot of them are still trying to focus on face-to-face, and maybe they're doing kind of real-life online classes in real time as opposed to kind of its pre-recorded classes. So maybe there's a gap in there for something like working out or wellness coaching. I guess something to consider around this general topic is that, are there any, legal requirements for doing a health and wellness course? So for example, remember personal trainers, they actually require a certification. So just be conscious about that. Or a yoga studio might require a certain certification as well. So just keep that in mind and just do a little bit of research to make sure you're not in contravention of any of that. But aside from those points, it is a growing area. So what are some example topics that we could actually make a course from it? Maybe it's one on CPR, like how to actually teach CPR. Maybe it's one around high intensity training, like how do you do HIIT training? Maybe it's a wellness retreat, right? And then you could, take advantage of the corporate market. Could be about preparing for a marathon. Could be about managing mental health during COVID. Could be about improving your sleep, right? So these are all example topics that could potentially sell well that fit within this health and wellness category. So the next category we're going to discuss is around personal development. So why is this an attractive category? Well, people are always looking for ways to develop themselves, whether it's improving their skills. And I guess this has improved, the demand for this has improved over time because of a lack of face-to-face due to COVID. And I guess the point here is that, the level of expertise you need to become a guru varies according to the topic. So some require little training, some require accreditation from a certified body. So just keep this in mind as well. But generally it's less compliance requirements than in the personal fitness space. So what are some example topics that you could teach in this area? You could talk about the habits of highly effective people. Could be about presentation skills. So this is always one that's in high demand because of people who want to improve in the workplace. They need to improve presentation skills, and it's often an area of weakness for people. Could be about life coaching or corporate coaching, so coaching for executives or for managers. Could be a course around improving productivity. Could be around basics of personal finance. Could be about dealing with stress. Or could be about work-life balance, right? So these are all examples. And again, these are not exhaustive lists. This is just a small sample. So we could probably come up with 100 ideas for each of these different categories. And I'm sure you can as well, but this is just to get you in the mindset and give you an idea of, basically linking to key topics. What are some examples? And then you can go and make your own based on these lists. So the next kind of category of example courses is around language courses. So, learning a new language, improving your current language, etc. So why is this a good one? Because, it's always been popular because people want to travel, whether that's for leisure or for work. So people might have a business trip to France and they just want to improve on their French language skills or maybe their cultural differences. Or it could be for leisure. So people obviously go on, holidays each year. They want to learn the language they're going to. I guess the key consideration here is, there are some big online competitors which focus specifically on this area. So for example, Duolingo, Rosetta Stone. So just try and not directly compete with this company. But, here are some example topics that, aren't directly competing. So for example, could be around business writing skills, which falls in the English category. Could be around, cultural differences, right? Which is important for a business market. You could focus specifically on one market, or you could just do a general course on, cultural differences around the world in business. Or you could try and learn a language, or if there's a language, if you're bilingual and you know a second language, you could go and teach a course on that, whether it's Mandarin, whether it's Spanish or German, whatever it may be. Okay, so the next general category that we could do a course in is around photography or filming. So, photography has always been a popular personal habit. And the access to digital cameras, whether that's on our phones or the advent of DSLRs and making them cheaper over time, has meant that there's a big audience out there of people who really want to know how to take or get the most out of their cameras and take really good photos. I guess the one downside to doing a course on this topic is the capital expenditure required to invest in equipment, whether that's cameras or, fancy video cameras. Right, because students want to be learning from people who have, optimal equipment in these situations. So that's probably the main downside. But, some example topics you could teach, food photography for Instagram, because that's obviously, quite a niche but very big and growing market. How to take landscape shots, should be sports photography, could be, how to use Photoshop and graphic design, because that's often an area of demand for people. Could be around lighting. Could be around wedding photography, like how to get into wedding photography, or posing. That's a good one. How to actually do, the best camera poses that makes you look good in photographs. Okay, so the next idea is around cooking courses. This is an area where people who know how to cook, the number of those people are dwindling. More people are relying on takeout food, but I think the technical skills of cooking is always in high demand because everyone needs to eat. And some online courses teaching cooking are actually some of the most profitable ones, simply because it's in demand, that everyone can be slightly differentiated because of how many recipes there are. And yeah, so, what could we do with our particular course? And what's the downside first, actually? I guess number one is that you might be competing against celebrity chefs, whether that's Gordon Ramsay, or Jamie Oliver, or whoever it may be. People probably want to learn from professionals who are really good cooks. So you probably do want to be a good cook if you want to be able to teach cooking course. But then again, all of these videos, they come back to analyzing your own skill set and what you're good at. And a lot of people are chefs for their career, or just really good, really good chefs as part of a passion, not something they're paid for. So what are some example topics of a course you could teach? Whether it's, making healthy meals, whether it's vegan recipes, because there's a growing number of vegans out there, whether it's a sample of cooking recipes for first timers, whether it's quick recipes, right? So maybe it's 30 recipes that take less than 30 minutes, whether it's baking for beginners, online cake decorating for kids, or a cocktail guide, right? How to host a great party and make really interesting cocktails. All of these could be really potentially interesting and high demand courses that make a lot of money. Next category is around home decor and gardening courses. So home improvement has always been a popular area. That's why there's always shows on TV like The Block, like Marie Kondo, about people who are just improving their kind of home and lifestyle. And to be honest, this is probably one of the easiest kind of categories to enter, because you don't necessarily need any specialist equipment or certifications. And it's a bit of a niche area. So, as long as you know how to kind of design things well, you can teach this course. So what are some example topics you could teach? Having a plant at home, how to actually make your apartment into kind of a green living space. Is it the concept of minimalist decor? How to organize your home in small spaces. Bedroom design for optimal sleep. Step-by-step guide to growing your own plants or herbs. Interior design for home offices. So another category that we could potentially make a course out of is around travel. And this has been a popular topic as well, and I'm sure post-COVID there'll be strong demand for this service. But social media influencers, travel blogging, these are all kind of very popular areas that some people make money from. So what are some example topics areas? So it could be travel writing, 101, how to get paid for traveling the world, because there'll be a lot of demand from people who they love traveling and they want to make a career out of it. So if you can teach people how to make money from traveling, whether that's travel writing or running Airbnbs, or whatever it may be, you'll get a lot of demand for your course. Could be around how to create a travel agency, could be around how to travel safely solo for female tourists, how to become a digital nomad. I think that'll be a very high demand course, particularly post-COVID, because people want to know how they can work remotely with that massive boom in that during COVID, and also be able to travel the world. So tips around how to do that. Could be around travel hacks, like so traveling very cheaply. So lots of good ideas in here for a new course. Arts and craft courses is another category. So if you're very artsy, so it doesn't always need to be about things that necessarily make money. It could just be teaching a passion or a skill, right? So arts is one of those things that you can make money from teaching a passion, whether that's origami, whether that's learning how to painting and watercolors. If you're very good at that, then it's a great idea to sell a course on how to paint things or make beautiful artworks. It could also be a course on NFTs. So the obviously demand for this, digital artworks went through the roof during COVID. So maybe you're teaching a course on that. Could be around sewing, or designing a brand or making jewelry, right? So lots of different ideas there. Another category, digital marketing and sales courses. So, digital marketing is a relatively new industry, but it's had massive growth. And maybe some people want to switch careers and get into this new kind of career. And it's often one that's quite popular. So what is digital marketing? Well, it's basically, it's quite a few things. So it's managing social media, it's managing SEO to blogging. It's all kind of different things. It is quite a broad industry, so there could be quite a few topics in here that you could potentially teach. But yeah, just keep in mind that some areas of it, like for example, affiliate marketing, there's a lot of kind of dodgy courses out there for kind of buzzwords like affiliate marketing. So just keep that in mind, that you might need to differentiate yourself if you are genuinely teaching some interesting and useful information. So what are some example topics under the category of digital marketing and sales? Could be content marketing, could be affiliate marketing, could be SEO optimization, could be social media management, could be a sales, BD, how to get new leads in a SaaS business masterclass. Could be around kind of an introduction or 101 to business development. Could be around cold calling and email outreach. So this could be a really good one, right? Because if you're in sales, cold calling is a critical component of your job to make greater sales. And if you can teach people how to do cold calling really effectively, then that's a skill that's highly valued by salespeople. You could I'm sure they'd be willing to pay, because it's going to increase their own earnings, right? So it's a very profitable area to teach a course. And the next kind of category is around maths and science. So, maybe this could be something that you learnt in university or high school that you can teach others about, or it could be something that's a passion like, coding or physics, or it could be something that's part of your job, whether it's your computer science degree or whatever it may be. But there's a strong demand in all three of those areas. I guess the risk is with this particular topic is that it is probably one that has a higher barrier to entry, because you'll be competing with a lot of people around coding. So there's a lot of coding courses out there, a lot of maths and physics courses, and maybe the universities create some of these courses as well. So you might be competing against them. But some example ideas for topics in this category could be introduction to physics, sustainable water use, how to deal with, maybe it's an introduction to psychology. It could be a course on astronomy and so forth. So the next kind of category is around programming and data science. So again, I might have repeated myself a little bit from the previous slide, but it's a massive growth area. So, almost all businesses are now tech businesses, right? So all businesses are now starting to, strengthen their online presence, their digital capability. So the need for programmers, developers, data scientists is going through the roof as well. So that means that there's strong demand for people, seeing those salaries increase, wanting to get into the industry as well. And then meaning that they need to learn these very technical skills, whether that's, Python or C++ or Java or, machine learning or AI or data analysis, or statistics, or even things like blockchain, Web 3.0, and other buzzwords like that. So this is probably an area that you probably will need to know a fair bit technically about, but if this is part of your job, or if it's something you studied, or something you just learnt as a passion separately and know a lot about it, this is a great area to start teaching some of these things. So some example topics could be fundamentals of statistics, could be Python, could be around algorithms and data structures, could be C++, full stack web development, could be around cybersecurity and so forth. Sorry, lost my page there. Slide. Okay, so that was the last slide. Okay, cool. So we've now finished our course. Just to quickly recap what we went through. So we did an introduction to this particular topic. Discuss how we're going to get these topics to actually teach an online course. Next, we looked at 4 different categories of course inspiration, which was work, study, your passions, and your research. And then finally, we went through very specific examples of courses by category, and hopefully gave you enough examples to start thinking about your own life, your own experience, and then considering what are some potential profitable subcategories, and then looking at very specific online course topics that we could potentially teach. So that's everything. You found it useful, and I will see you in the rest of the course where we discuss the key steps to designing your online course. Thank you for watching.